Welcome to my channel BBC Rare Coins. The US quarter dollar is more than just spare change. It's a piece of American history that fits in the palm of your hand. Let's start. Top 1. What if I told you a single coin, a 1965 Washington quarter, could be worth $71,000? It looks like any other quarter. You've probably had dozens like it in your pocket, dropped one into a soda machine, tossed one into a tip jar. But one rare version of this everyday coin hides a secret that stunned the numismatic world. In 1965, the U.S. Mint made a historic change. Due to the rising cost of silver, they stopped producing quarters with 90% silver content and switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. That change was meant to be absolute. Every quarter dated 1965 was supposed to be clad. Every single one, no exceptions. But then, a mistake happened. Some silver planchets, the blank discs intended for 1964 silver quarters, remained in the minting machines. These leftover planchets were accidentally fed into presses stamping the new 1965 date. And just like that, a handful of silver 1965 quarters were born. Quarters that should never have existed. Fast forward decades later, collectors started noticing strange 1965 quarters. Heavier than normal. Different ring when dropped. A soft luster that didn't match the copper-nickel coins. One by one, these quarters were tested, weighed, examined under microscopes. And yes, some were silver. Genuine silver quarters with the 1965 date. But why $71,000? That price wasn't just pulled out of thin air. That's what one collector paid at auction for a pristine, verified 1965 silver quarter. Not because it was just silver, but because of its rarity, its condition, and its historical significance. We're talking about a coin that shouldn't exist. A minting error so rare that fewer than a dozen have ever been confirmed. Collectors call them transitional errors, coins struck with the wrong metal from the previous year. They're among the rarest and most valuable errors in U.S. coin history. The 1965 silver quarter is the king of them all. Imagine holding one. The weight in your hand. The soft ring of real silver. The knowledge that it slipped through the cracks of a million-coin operation, that it dodged the smelting pot, escaped circulation, and survived decades unnoticed. A coin born in error, now crowned in glory. But there's something even more fascinating. Most of these quarters weren't found in vaults or auctions. They were discovered in pocket change. Yes, that's right. Ordinary people going through their loose change, spotting something strange. A slightly different edge color, a glint, a feel, and that's what makes the 1965 silver quarter legendary. It's a reminder that treasure still exists out there, not buried in the ground or locked in banks, but hiding in plain sight. So next time you get change at the store, take a look. Check the date. Feel the weight. Listen to the sound. Who knows? You might just be holding a $71,000 miracle in your hand. Top 2. In the world of American coins, there are a few legends that rise above the rest. Some because of their age, some because of their condition, and some because they were never meant to exist. But none are quite like the 1972 Washington quarter dollar that shook the collecting world with a value of $69,000. At first glance, it looks like any other coin. A quarter you'd hand to a cashier without a second thought. A coin you might find in your car's cup holder or in your pocket after buying coffee. But one particular 1972 quarter is not like the others. It's a ghost from a forgotten minting error. A survivor of a mechanical slip-up so rare, only a few ever made it into the world. Let's go back to the early 1970s. The U.S. Mint was producing millions of quarters, all with the familiar copper-nickel clad composition. Silver had been removed from regular coinage since 1965. Everything was modern, efficient, routine. But machines, even the most precise ones, are not perfect. In a sea of ordinary coins, a few anomalies began to surface. Quarters that didn't look quite right. A sharper strike, a brighter surface, a heavier feel, and most strangely, a different metallic ring when dropped on a hard surface. What collectors eventually discovered was stunning. A few 1972 quarters had been struck on leftover 90% silver planchets. Blanks that were never supposed to be there. Blanks that belonged to an era long gone. And yet, somehow, they were fed into the coin presses. Somehow, they were stamped with the date 1972. Somehow, they slipped past inspection. And somehow, they ended up in circulation, camouflaged among billions of ordinary coins. That it's the kind of mistake that shouldn't happen. Not in 1972. Not after years of modernization. Not with all the layers of checks and balances at the mint. But it did. And the result is one of the rarest and most valuable Washington quarters in U.S. history. The $69,000 price tag isn't just about rarity. It's about mystery. It's about the story. How could a silver quarter exist in 1972? Was it a forgotten blank? A rogue experiment? A deliberate act by someone inside the mint? The questions only add to the coin's legend. And then there's the condition. The $69,000 coin wasn't just rare, it was flawless. Mint state. Untouched. Preserved for decades as if fate itself had protected it. It wasn't just a lucky find. It was history, sealed in metal. Only a few collectors in the world will ever hold one. But the thrill of the hunt still exists. Because these coins weren't locked away in treasure chests. They were released into the wild. Into everyday life. Into pockets, drawers, and coffee tins. Imagine finding one. Just one. A single quarter in your change that looks ordinary but is anything but. A coin that sounds different, shines differently, feels heavier. A mistake that turned into a miracle. That's the power of the 1972 Washington quarter. It represents more than just money. It's a piece of history, a glitch in the system, a whisper from the past. And for one lucky collector, it was a $69,000 whisper. So next time you get change, look closely. Because somewhere out there, another one might still be waiting. Not behind glass, not in a museum, but in your hands. A treasure hiding in plain sight. A piece of American history that slipped through the cracks and survived. Top 3. In a world filled with spare change, there lies a secret. A story of a coin so rare, so unexpected, it turned heads across the numismatic community. A simple Washington quarter, dated 1980. Common to the eye, ordinary to the hand, but hiding a mystery so deep that it fetched an astounding $65,000. This isn't fiction. This is the legend of one of the most valuable and rarest Washington quarters ever struck by the United States Mint. The year was 1980. The disco era was fading, inflation was rising, and America was deep in transition. The Mint was producing millions upon millions of quarters to feed a growing economy. Machines running day and night. Presses slamming blank discs with the familiar image of George Washington. Everything seemed routine. But in the vast sea of copper-nickel-clad quarters, something went wrong. One coin, perhaps only one, was struck not on the normal clad planchet, but on something very different. A blank that should never have been there. Some say it was a leftover silver planchet. Others believe it was struck on a foreign coin blank that got mixed into the feed by mistake. Whatever it was, it created a quarter that was unlike anything else from 1980 to it had a strange weight. It had a tone unlike the dull ring of a standard quarter. And most mysteriously, it had a shine and detail far beyond the typical circulation strike. It was sharper, cleaner, with a finish that didn't belong in a pile of everyday coins. It was a ghost, an error born from a hidden flaw in the minting process. For years, this coin passed quietly, unnoticed. Until one day, it landed in the hands of a collector with a sharp eye and decades of experience. A simple glance, a curious ring, a weight that felt just a little off, and the investigation began. Metallurgical analysis, expert verification, microscopic examination. The results were conclusive. It was a mint error of the highest rarity. This wasn't just a misprint. It was a once-in-a-generation mistake. A coin that slipped through every layer of modern quality control. A 1980 Washington quarter struck on the wrong planchet, in pristine condition, saved from circulation by pure chance. The auction house that handled the sale described it as an anomaly that defines the term rare. Bidders from around the world joined the frenzy. And when the final gavel fell, the price hit $65,000. Not for gold, not for platinum, but for a simple U.S. quarter with a hidden past. What makes this coin truly fascinating isn't just the number attached to it. It's what it represents. A flaw in perfection. A whisper from inside the mint's tightly sealed process. A moment where machines, humans, and history collided to create something extraordinary. It's a reminder that value isn't always about size or shine. Sometimes it's about the improbable, the accidental, the coin that shouldn't exist but does, and only because fate decided to let it live. Most people will never see this coin. Fewer will ever hold it. But that doesn't mean it's gone, because history has a way of hiding in plain sight. One more error could be out there right now, buried in a drawer, sitting in a collection box, tossed in a jar with pennies and nickels. That's the magic of the 1980 Washington quarter. It's not just a coin. It's a legend, a time traveler, a silent witness to the power of chance. And for one collector, it became a $65,000 miracle. So next time you check your change, take a second look. You never know what secrets might be hiding in a coin so ordinary. It could change your life forever. Top 4. Sometimes, the most extraordinary treasures come in the most ordinary forms. A coin so small it fits in your palm. So familiar you see it every day. But hidden within that simplicity lies a mystery worth tens of thousands of dollars. This is the story of the rarest and most valuable 1990 Washington quarter ever discovered in U.S. history. A coin so unique, it sold for a jaw-dropping $57,000 at the end of a decade. America stood at the dawn of a new era. The Berlin Wall had fallen, the Gulf War was near, and the digital age was beginning to take shape. The U.S. Mint was in full production, striking billions of coins for everyday use. No silver, no special metal, just the standard copper-nickel-clad coinage that had become the national standard since the mid-1960s. Quarters rolled off the presses by the millions. Most were forgettable, ordinary, and destined to live short, unnoticed lives in change drawers and cash registers. But not this one. This quarter. This one single 1990 Washington quarter was born different. It was struck in a way that defied explanation. Whether due to a planchet error, an incorrect die pairing, or a production anomaly lost to time, it became something else entirely. It had sharper detail, unusual reflectivity, and a weight and tone that stood out immediately to the trained eye. Some believe it was mistakenly struck on a leftover silver planchet, long after silver had been phased out of regular circulation. Others think it may have been a test strike or a coin struck using proof dies on a business strike planchet, making it one of the rarest known hybrid mint errors in U.S. coinage. Whatever its origin, one thing is clear: it wasn't supposed to exist, and yet it did. The coin eventually made its way into the hands of a collector. Not a billionaire, not an investor, just someone with a passion for coins and an eye for detail. That collector noticed something different. An unusual ring when the coin hit a table, a brighter luster, finer lines in Washington's portrait. Intrigued, they sent the coin for professional evaluation. What came back wasn't just confirmation of an error, it was confirmation of history. Graded at the highest mint state levels, the coin was authenticated as a genuine U.S. Mint error and one of extreme rarity. The kind of rarity that can't be manufactured. The kind of rarity that happens by accident. Once. Maybe twice. But never again in the exact same way. Word spread through the collecting world like wildfire. And when the coin finally went to auction, bidders didn't hold back. Everyone wanted a piece of this anomaly. A piece of history. A mistake so perfect it became a masterpiece. The final hammer price? $57,000. That's not just a number. That's a life-changing moment. For a coin once worth 25 cents, it was a 22,700% increase in value. For the collector, it was validation. For the numismatic world, it was proof that lightning can strike. Even in 1990. And here's what makes this story even more powerful. This coin wasn't found in a vault. It wasn't locked behind glass for decades. It came from circulation. It passed through hands, through stores, through lives. It survived against the odds, unnoticed by everyone until one person paid attention. That's the magic of coin collecting. That's the beauty of the hunt. Because treasures like this don't come with flashing lights or alarms. They hide in plain sight. They blend in. They wait. The 1990 Washington quarter that sold for $57,000 didn't just rewrite the rules. It reminded the world that the rarest, most valuable things are often overlooked. So take a second look. Dig through your change. Check your old jars, your sock drawers, your childhood coin stash. Because somewhere out there, another miracle may be waiting. Another error. Another survivor. Another coin with a story no one's told yet. And maybe, just maybe, it's sitting in your hands right now. Top 5. It's just a quarter. 25 cents. Small. Common. Passed from hand to hand without a second thought. But one 1992 Washington quarter changed everything. It was no ordinary coin. It was a silent treasure, a minting mistake turned masterpiece, a piece of metal that would eventually sell for an astonishing $53,000. This is the story of the most valuable and rarest Washington quarter from 1992. A coin so elusive, so mysterious, and so unexpected that it became one of the greatest modern rarities in U.S. coinage history. The early 90s were a quiet time for the U.S. Mint. No commemorative quarters, no flashy designs, just business as usual. Billions of standard copper-nickel-clad quarters stamped with the image of George Washington on the front and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. Everything ran smoothly, or so it seemed. But deep inside one of those massive minting facilities, a mistake happened. A rare, tiny oversight, so small it went unnoticed, but so powerful it gave birth to something extraordinary that a few 1992 quarters, intended for regular circulation, were struck using the wrong planchets, those meant for proof coins. These planchets were supposed to be used only for collector sets. Mirror-finished surfaces, struck multiple times for sharpness and depth. But a handful of them somehow made their way into the presses used for standard coins. The result? A business strike quarter with proof characteristics. A hybrid. An error. A miracle. And that's not all. Even rarer than the special planchet was a 1992 Washington quarter with what collectors now call the close AM reverse. It was a subtle but telling feature. On standard quarters of the time, the A and M in America are spaced apart. But on this rare error, they were nearly touching, a design used only on certain proof coins. Somehow, that reverse die was used on a regular quarter. What happened was pure accident. A few dies intended for proof production were mixed into business strike equipment. A few coins were struck. Most were lost in circulation forever. But one of them survived. And that survivor would go on to become a legend. This 1992 Washington quarter surfaced quietly, found not in a collector's showcase, but in everyday life. A sharp-eyed enthusiast noticed something unusual in the font spacing, the shine, the quality. They sent it for professional grading. The verdict: an extremely rare close AM transitional variety, possibly struck on a proof planchet. One of a kind. Flawless. Priceless. When the coin was put up for auction, collectors knew what it was. Not just a mistake, but a masterpiece born from the chaos of mass production. The bidding was intense, driven by the combination of rarity, condition, and mystery. When the hammer dropped, the final price read $53,000 to all for a quarter. But it's not just about the money. It's about what the coin represents. A hidden anomaly in a world of repetition. A symbol of imperfection that turned into perfection. A piece of metal that escaped destruction and was transformed into history. The 1992 quarter reminds us that the rarest treasures don't always come in gold or jewels. Sometimes, they come in the form of a coin passed down in pocket change. Missed by millions, caught by one dot. And the most astonishing part? There could be more. Still out there. Still hiding. Still waiting. Because these rare errors weren't meant to be saved. They were meant to be spent. Most were. But a few, just a few, might still be sitting in jars, drawers, and change purses across the country. So next time you flip through your spare change, take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the details. Because one coin changed someone's life, and yours might be next. That's the legacy of the 1992 Washington quarter. A $53,000 mystery. A 25-cent legend. A reminder that the ordinary isn't always what it seems.